can all see your message. Type your thoughts in the chat box, and then when you're finished typing, click enter. Lastly, we will be performing several activities throughout today's webinar by using the raise hand button, which is located at the bottom of the screen next to the reactions button or the smiley face. It looks like an icon with a hand in the air. I'd like you to go ahead now and click that raise hand button for me. Once again, it's right at the bottom of the screen next to the smiley face. There all go, the wonderful hands are all going up. Okay, click it again and that'll lower your hand. So I'll try and keep an eye on that chat field there if your hand goes up. But once again, the best way to get our attention is to just type us a question in the chat box area. As I mentioned previously, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, or as many people know us as the Partnership. What is the partnership exactly, you may be wondering? For CSEA represented employees, and that's through a labor management cooperation. It is funded through negotiated agreements between the New York State and CSEA. The partnership offers in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, and other education and training programs, including the webinar you are attending today. Partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. You can learn more about us on our website or by contacting us directly. I'll provide our contact information again at the end of today's webinar. Now that we know a little bit more about the partnership, let's get started with understanding today's computer webinar. I'd like to turn our presentation over to your facilitator, Eleonora.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. My name is Eleonora, as Timothy said, and gosh, it was great seeing some of your comments in the chat panel. I've been using computers and being a computer trainer. I guess it's over 30 years now. So I know some people said they're old, too old, and old dogs. Well, it's never too late to learn something new and learn about today's computers. So let's get going. Regardless of your experience or comfort with technology, I think we can all agree that technology is working its way into every part of our daily lives. We have smartphones, smartwatches, smart speakers, and smart TVs, and smart thermometers, and smart this and that, and geez, I don't know what makes them so smart. So this leads me to wonder, how many computer devices do you have in your home?
So please type how many devices you have in your home in the chat box. Once again, that chat box is at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Make sure that it says all participants in the drop-down box, then press enter after you've typed your thought. So how many devices, computer devices, do you have in your home? Let's see what everybody says.
Too
You said
many.
too
I like
many.
that one. More than I want. Yep.
3, 4,
Yeah.
3, 5,
Yeah.
8. So you had 8.
Well, yeah. Guess if you have youngsters or several, just my phone. Yeah, right. Family, larger families. Yeah, not at least 6. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Imagine what these answers were a couple of years ago. Just even a couple of years ago. It probably wouldn't have been as many, but wow, thanks for sharing. So I'm not surprised to see many of you have multiple devices in your home. According to a 2017 study, the average US household has 5 devices connected to the internet. Actually, that study only counted computers, tablets, smartphones, and streaming devices like a Roku. So I'm sure the number has gone up in the last few years, especially when you count all of the smart devices in our homes now. So as we see technology is just part of our lives. While this can all be exciting and convenient, it can also be a little overwhelming. Yeah, too many. Technology is constantly changing and moving at a pace that can be hard for anyone to keep up with. New types of devices are introduced every year, and with them come a whole bunch of new words to learn: Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, iOS, Android, RAM, the cloud, and the list goes on. Keeping up with this can be stressful, and it often leaves us scratching our heads and thinking, what is that? Well, today we're hopefully going to take help take some of the stress out of this topic. We'll build up your technology vocabulary with explanations of some of the words you're likely to come across in your day-to-day interactions with technology. And don't worry, all the terms we'll be talking about today and a whole lot more is listed in the glossary of terms that we've included in the handout.
So you can print those handouts later as well as the PowerPoint presentation if you haven't already done so. Just go back to your webinar invitation email. They were attached to that.
All right, great. Good to know. Thanks for that reminder. And after learning some terms, we'll look at the most common devices and explore similarities and differences between them. Along the way, we'll talk about some tips and techniques that can be helpful. A quick final note. We'll be using the word device today to refer to computer devices, computing devices like computers, laptops, smartphones, and all that good stuff. To meet the goals that we have set up for today, we'll be covering these three topics. A slide will serve as a roadmap as we cover those topics. We got hardware. So let's start with the physical parts of a device or accessories you might use with it, like a keyboard or a mouse. The first piece of hardware we'll look at is the CPU, also known as the processor. So central processing unit, that's what CPU stands for. And we have a picture so you can see what one looks like. The CPU is like the brain of the device. It's responsible for taking input, for example, a key being pressed on the keyboard, and processing the data based on the instructions it's given, and then output something on the screen. And some of them are like dual core, quad core, and that's the brain of the computer. Another thing we have is the hard drive. So we need something to keep our files long term. This is where your hard drive comes in. When your computer is turned off, the data on the hard drive is not lost. So when you save a file like a Word or Excel document, it is stored on your hard drive so you can access it later. Every device generally has some way to store information long term that is built into it. However, there is also external storage which can be connected to a device when you need it and then disconnected when you're done. This allows you to transfer data from one device to another or back your data up to keep it safe. Common types of external storage include external drives, flash or thumb drives, and SD cards. But just remember, your security policies at your agency may prevent you from using flash drives on your work computers, so just be aware of that. And of course, you may have heard of the terminology, the cloud, and it's used quite a bit and basically means using the internet to send data to an external storage device housed somewhere else. Examples of cloud storage services include Google Drive, Apple iCloud, and Microsoft OneDrive. This type of storage has two advantages. First, you can access your data from almost any device with internet access. Second, it allows you to save your data in a safe, protected location far away from us in case something happens like a fire or flood. The downside with the cloud, though, is you need to have internet access to be able to get to your data. So, before we move on from talking about data storage, I have another question for you. Let's say you're going back and forth between working in the office and remotely. At the office, you have a desktop computer, and while working remotely, you use a laptop. You need to access documents for a project you'll be working on in both places. Where should you store your project documents? On your computer drive, or on an external device, or in the cloud?
So please type your thoughts about where you should store project documents that need to be accessed
Externals, but nobody's saying locally. Nobody's saying on their computer. So yeah, thanks for sharing your ideas. There are actually two options, as I think most of you said. If you have internet access while you're working remotely, then the best solution is likely cloud. Storing on the hard drive at work or in your documents folder or something like that, or on your laptop would leave the data stuck on that device. So external storage could work, but you would need to remember to have your external device with you, otherwise you're out of luck. In the cloud, though, we can access the file anytime from any computer. If you don't have internet access, then you're going to want to go with external storage like a flash drive. Again, please remember to follow your agency guidelines when considering where to store your files. RAM, or random access memory, is your short-term memory. And it's that next piece of hardware that we'll look at. Unlike a hard drive, which stores data long-term, RAM is short-term memory. In fact, it, it's, it is very fast and compared to a hard drive, but there is limited storage space because it's only meant to be used by the software while it's running. Once the software is closed or the device is turned off, the data is cleared out of RAM. Generally speaking, the more RAM the device has, the more apps you can have open at a time. So I always say RAM is like when I go to a networking event and somebody tells me their name, and then like about an hour later, I forget their name. That's RAM. At that moment, I can do things. So there you go. I'd like to talk for a moment about the number one thing that IT help desk wishes we do before calling them, restarting the computer. If you've ever wondered why this is usually the first suggestion, that's because turning off the computer does something to that bit of hardware that we just talked about. That's right, it clears out RAM. So if there was something odd going on with your software, restarting your computer will clear out everything and start you with a clean slate. I know it's because a joke that many of us usually say the first thing we're asked to do when we call the help desk is to restart our computers, but restarting your device is one of the simplest things you can do to fix a technical issue, and it often solves the problem. So try that first. Okay. Another important category of hardware is input and output devices. So let's touch on these. Type or so let us type or tell our device smart speaker like Amazon Echo or Google Home. Similarly, there are many output devices, including monitors, headphones, and printers. One thing to be mindful of with any device is what type of connectors, ports, and jacks it has. Input and output external storage need to connect to your device in some way. We've included a chart in the handouts that shows what the many different types of cables and ports look like to help you make sure you have what you need. There's nothing like trying to connect an HDMI to a VGA. Speaking of input devices, do any of you use voice assistants like Alexa, Cortana, Siri, or Google Assistant to get information or tell your device to do something?
So if you have used a voice assistant, please click on the reactions or the smiley face button at the bottom of the screen and then select the thumbs up. If you don't, please select the thumbs down if you've ever used a voice assistant.
We'll get to questions at the end of the session. Tim, is that just out of curiosity?
Well, we can take them as they come up in the text chat area.
Okay, all right. Just
A
see,
couple, two that just came up.
yeah, I just save
Looks like we're having a
information
lot
and
of
then
thumbs
thumbs
up and
up.
thumbs down, about 50-50.
All right. So how do you save information and then access it when it's in the cloud? What's the best way to save your data to the cloud? So to access the information when it's saved in the cloud, typically you're going to go to your cloud drive. So if you were using probably a Microsoft Office application, you may have something called OneDrive. And that may even be when you go to your Windows Explorer, you'll see OneDrive, or you might be able to go to your drives, your network drives, and you'll see OneDrive in there, but that's actually cloud storage. And the best way to save the data to the cloud would be to log into that cloud cloud folder or cloud area. So let's say it's Google Drive, which I use, or OneDrive, but I'll say Google Drive. I can go to my drive.google.com. I would log in with my Gmail address, and there's an option to upload a file to that Google Drive. But with Microsoft Office, typically you'll have access to OneDrive, and it'll feel just like you're saving a file onto one of your network drives, but instead of going to the network drive, you go to OneDrive. So that's how you save it, and that's how you would access it as well. You would just go back to that drive and just double click on the file, and it's opening it from there. So hopefully that answers that question. So, but it looks like a bunch of people answered that they do use voice assistants and hey this one and hey that one. I'm not going to say those words because otherwise it's going to launch them on your own devices. So the last bit of hardware we'll talk about today is what you use to connect to the internet. And there are typically two ways to connect to the internet, wired and wireless. So a wired connection is just what the name suggests, a physical cable known as an Ethernet cable that plugs into your device on one end and into a modem or router on the other end to connect you to the internet through whatever service you use. This is how most of our computers in the office are connected to the internet. In your own houses, it's usually through a coaxial cable that comes into your house and then connects to a router, and then we have the wireless connection. A wireless connection allows us to get to the internet using radio waves or Wi-Fi or by cellular connection by a hotspot on your phone or 5G, which usually you'll hear described as 3G, 4G, 5G, or LTE. The advantage of a wired connection is that you will typically get faster speeds, while a wireless connection gives you freedom to move around. Okay, I'd like to give you a quick quiz on hardware. Are items in RAM deleted when you turn off your computer?
So if you believe that things in RAM are deleted when you turn off your computer, please click that thumbs up from the reactions button. If you believe they are not deleted, click the thumbs down in the same area. Let's see what we get. About 60-40 thumbs up. Maybe going a little higher.
All right, there you go. Good. Yeah. Actually, the answer, yeah, looks good. Most people are saying yes. So yes, the answer is yes. Items, in RAM, items, files, data in RAM is deleted when you turn your computer off. That's why it's so important to save your files to long-term storage, such as the hard drive, external storage, or cloud. So are there any additional questions about hardware before we move on to our next topic?
So if you do have any questions, go ahead and let us know in the text chat area.
Right, so we got the question, is Google Drive free? And our Elizabeth Young, thank you for responding. Yeah, it is free as long as you have a Gmail account. It's probably at least 5 to 15 gigs are free on Google Drive, and then yes, you can pay to get more. Same thing is true for iCloud. You get a certain amount for free when you get an Apple, if you have an iPhone, and then you can pay very little. It's pretty inexpensive to get additional cloud storage. So good. Yep. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
All
But
right, doesn't look like we have any more questions, so let's
yeah,
move on.
yeah, sure. Now let's talk about software. Think of software as a set of instructions for the computer. So hardware is the brains. These are the instructions. We're going to look at two major types of software today, operating systems and application software. Let's start with operating systems, or OS. This is the most important software on your computer because without it, your computer won't work. Operating system software allows hardware to do its job and creates a place for applications like email or word processors to run. It does a lot of things behind the scene, like managing resource memory, writing data to the hard drive, controlling your input and output hardware, and many other things. Because it is so important, the operating system software is almost always pre-installed on a device. Okay. Here are some common operating systems you've probably seen. So iOS, OS, Windows, Windows 11, Windows 10. If you have a desktop or laptop, you'll typically have Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, or Google Chrome OS as your operating system. If you're using a mobile device, you will have a mobile operating system such as Apple iOS or Google Android. And the only thing that can run on Mac OS or iOS are Apple devices. Now that you know a little bit more about operating systems, what OS do you think the state computers generally use?
So please type the name of your operating system that most computers in New York State work on in the chat box. And it looks like everybody is saying Microsoft Windows.
Yep. And then, yep, I see that. And then I will just answer, what does the term backup mean and how do you back up your information? And Elizabeth was right on track again, just to confirm that. It just means to save your information in another location as well as having it on the original in the original location. So if you think of, I don't know, like you have a maybe you have a document like the title for your car or something like that. You might want to make a photocopy of that so you have a backup. So that's what you're doing. You're making a copy of something and saving it somewhere else, possibly on an external hard drive or on a jump drive or maybe on a network drive or in the cloud. But it just means like making a photocopy of something so that if one gets ruined, you still have a copy of it somewhere else. So, but Elizabeth, thank you for that, that chime in. But yeah, so yeah, probably the state uses mostly Windows computers. So every once in a while, I have seen a Mac out there. Now that you're familiar with operating system software, let's talk about application software. So applications are what most people call programs on your computers or apps on your mobile devices, are any type of software that performs a specific task that we find useful, like reading email, creating spreadsheets. They run in the environment the operating system creates. As I said a moment ago, systems, including your mobile devices. On a quick note on that last bit, it's always important to check to make sure that the software you want to use works with the operating system for your device. So a quick question, which of the following are examples of application software?
So our choices are A, internet web browsers, B, Outlook, C, Facebook, or D, the calculator. Type the letters of all that apply in the chat box. So which of the following are examples of application software?
What do we got? Could be all.
A lot
Yeah.
of BDs, getting a lot of alls.
Yeah, so I'd definitely say D. Office programs, social media apps. Yeah, so all would be correct. You might say, well, I can't launch Facebook from my computer. Like, you're right, you can't go to the start menu and open Facebook, but you can go to the Facebook app on your mobile device. So, so those are all, and your browser is definitely an application software. So there you go. So a little bit of a trick question, sorry about that. But yes, all of them are application software. Web browsers, office programs, social media apps, and small programs like a calculator or notepad are all common types of application software we use every day. However, not all application software is helpful. When connecting to the internet, our devices and our data can be exposed to apps commonly known as malware that are designed to do damage to your device or data. This is why it's important to have antivirus software running on every device that has it. Many of you are familiar with applications that are installed on your device, like Microsoft Word or a web browser like Google Chrome. However, some applications operate in the cloud. I would like you to raise your hand if you've used an online email service like Gmail, Yahoo, or Hotmail.
So go ahead and raise your hand if you've used any one of the following email services, Gmail, Yahoo, or Hotmail.
Oh, okay.
Running about 50% of the hands are raised.
Okay. Okay, so I can see a bunch of you, yes. I'm getting seeing a lot of yeses in the chat panel. So many of you have used these services. And if you have, then you've already used cloud computing. Okay. We talked about cloud-based storage earlier, and the benefits of cloud-based software are much the same. You can access the software from nearly any device with a web browser and an internet connection. So if you're using Gmail, that mail is not stored on your device. It's in the cloud, so you can get to it from your phone, from a computer, from a tablet. So it's really, really important. And that's a lot of times you'll hear a terminology called software as a service, SaaS. So that's called SaaS, and it's software as a service. And a lot of software is going that way. Is there one malware program that is better than others? Um, that's a tough question. Antivirus programs and things like that. Um, you know, I I can't, I'm not going to recommend anything because that's not my place necessarily. There are the big names out there like McAfee and Norton. Those are your big names. I know the state has some installed already, but you can go to some reputable websites like Consumer Reports, and you could look up what is the best malware program or antivirus program out there. Windows comes with Windows Defender, and that should be running on your home laptops if you're using Windows. So, yep, good, good. Okay. Well, I have another question for you. How often do you think you should update the software on your computer or mobile device?
So once again, please type the letter of the choice you think that represents how often you should update your software in the chat box. A, once a week, B, once a month, C, once every 6 months, D, once a year, or E, whenever prompted. So go ahead and let us know in the chat box what you think.
Okay.
We're running the gamut here.
Yep.
A lot of B's
Okay.
and a lot of E's.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So the best answer is whenever prompted. Um, so companies regularly find bugs and vulnerabilities in their software and release a new version of it to protect us from cyber attacks. One of the most important things you can do to protect yourself from security threats is to keep both your operating systems and application software up to date. Don't put off updates or turn off automatically update feature. If you do, you could be setting yourself up for a problem that could be avoided. And you're right. So some people are noting that on your own computers at the office, a lot of the updates are controlled by IT. So New York State office computers are maintained by IT professionals who are responsible for protecting the state computers and updating operating systems and software, including antivirus. But you are responsible for these tasks on your own devices. So yeah, I would say, go ahead and do those updates whenever possible, especially when prompted on your own home systems, and keep that up to date. So what if your computer is frozen? Don't start by pushing the power button to turn it off. That can lead to lost data. Instead, try to close the app that's maybe causing problems first. If that doesn't work, see if you can force the program to close in the operating system. To do that in Windows, press Control Alt Delete, and that'll open up the Task Manager. Then highlight the program that's not responding and choose End Task. We don't have time to talk about all the keyboard shortcuts, so if you're interested in learning more, check out our Get.
What do you think about that, Eleonora? Does
Um,
the update lose any memory? I don't think it does.
no, no, doing an update won't lose any memory. Like if you've saved devices or things like that, um, there, one thing that does happen when you update your computer is there are times that, or your mobile devices, there are times that your mobile device or your computer may be too old to support the update because the processor can't support the updates, or your hard drive doesn't have enough room to install any new features with those updates, but you won't lose any memory. No. Um, so that's what that means.
Okay, it doesn't seem like we're getting any more questions, but at any
Okay.
time, anybody can type a question in the chat area. We've been getting some good ones, so keep them coming if you like, and we'll just move on.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and on a Mac, it's Command Option Escape to do the like Control Alt Delete on a PC. So we've talked about hardware, we've talked about software. So let's get into computer devices, the actual things in our hands. Oh yeah, lots of them here. The devices we'll be focusing on today are desktops, laptops, tablets, such as an iPad, and smartphones. Which device do you own? So before we dive in, I'd like to start our discussion by asking what kinds of personal computing devices you currently own or use at home. A through D.
So go ahead and let us know in the chat box area there. What devices do you own? A desktop, B, a laptop, C, a tablet, D, a smartphone, or E, if you don't own anything. Let's see what we get. A, B, C, D, or E.
Although a lot of them come in with newer iPhones than I have. So great, thanks for sharing. We've learned a little bit about what device each of you are using in terms of these devices. Now let's talk about the features of each and what makes it unique.
Okay.
We'll start with desktop computers. The desktop computer was the first personal computing device. As we learned, some of us have desktops in our homes. Desktops have a few advantages. They typically include a large monitor. This is useful for viewing several applications at the same time. Not surprisingly, desktops run a desktop OS, so you have access to the power that comes with that. They tend to have large internal drives, so you can store more than you might be able to with other devices. They can house more powerful video cards, making them ideal for playing modern video games or editing ports or connectors of any device. And generally, they can be customized and upgraded after you purchase them. This allows you to extend the life of your computer after you buy it by adding things like extra monitor, a larger hard drive, more RAM, or a new video card. So rather than having to buy a brand new device, you only need to replace a part or two, which could potentially save you a good deal of money. Finally, desktop computers can connect to the internet using a wired or wireless connection. You'll get more performance for the money with a desktop, but you're limited by the fact that you can't easily move it. So if you're not concerned about the portability, then a desktop might be the right device. So desktops have a lot to offer, but let's look at laptops. The most obvious advantage of a laptop is that unlike desktops, they are portable because of their smaller size and lighter weight. Between charges, laptop batteries can last anywhere between 6 to 18 hours. Laptops also run a desktop OS, so you have access to more full-featured apps. Like a desktop computers, most laptops can be connected to the internet with a wired or wireless connection. That said, many new laptops only have wireless connections, so be sure to check. While the portability of a laptop is great, it comes at a price. When compared to a desktop, laptops have smaller screen size, fewer ports, and less room for larger video cards. And remember, this can help with photo editing and video games. And limited availability to be upgraded. This means some laptops may not have a disk drive, or you might have to invest in an external hub to connect some of your input and output devices. That said, if you're looking for something that's portable and easy to travel with, but you want more power than a mobile device, which we'll talk about in a second, then laptops can be a great choice. They are perfect for working in Word or Excel, editing smaller photos, and playing less graphic-intensive video games. A tablet, as you probably know, are mobile devices that are smaller than laptops and usually don't come with a keyboard. Tablets are becoming more and more common every day. Many of you may be thinking of an iPad when you think of a tablet, but Samsung, Google, Amazon, and many other brands make tablet devices. The advantage of a tablet is that it's very lightweight. They use a touchscreen for input, and they have a battery life similar to a laptop. The screen is usually smaller than a laptop, but typically much larger than a smartphone. It may not fit in your pocket, but you can easily slip it in a bag when you're traveling. Most tablets tend to come with a front and back camera, making them good for video chatting. You can take pictures with a tablet as well, but try to be mindful that you're not blocking other people's views when you're at an event. Yeah, they're kind of big for taking pictures. Most tablets run on mobile OS, so not a desktop OS, but a mobile OS. So they can only run mobile apps, which tend to have fewer features than the desktop apps because of the difference in screen size and power. This can be a disadvantage if you want more powerful software that you find on a desktop or a laptop. Tablets generally cannot be upgraded after you buy them and tend to have less storage than a desktop or laptop. They can connect to the internet through Wi-Fi or through a cellular connection. If you're looking to browse the internet, check email, watch movies, listen to music, read a digital book, or video chat, but want a bigger screen than you would with a smartphone, then a tablet is a good device to consider. Finally, smartphones. Smartphones also share a lot of the same features as the tablets, just on a smaller scale. Before we look at smartphones in a bit more depth, I'm curious how many people decided to give up their landline and only keep a cell phone in home. Please raise your hand now if you've done that.
So go ahead and raise your hand if you don't have a landline at home anymore, if you just only have a cell phone. If I had a hand to raise, I would raise my hand.
Yeah.
We just killed my home phone about 6 months ago.
No, I did it, years ago.
A
20,
lot of people are raising their hand.
yeah.
Let's see what we got.
Um, yep, yeah,
40% raising their hands there, Eileen.
uh, yep, cell phone, yep, so yep, you go. So thanks for sharing. Much like tablets, smartphones are easy to carry, have a similar size storage, and rely on mobile apps. They have a front and rear facing camera like a tablet, but these cameras are often higher quality, allowing you to take better photos and videos. They also connect to the internet wirelessly through cell phone providers. They share a lot of similarities with tablets. The biggest and likely most obvious difference between the two is that a smartphone is a telephone and a tablet is not. Smartphones have many of the same disadvantages of a tablet as well. They have small screens, cannot run more powerful software that you would find on a desktop or laptop. And again, like tablets, smartphones are not expandables. You get what you buy. If you want a device that can make calls, play music and podcasts, take great pictures, manage your calendar, check emails, surf the web, and you don't mind a smaller screen, then a smartphone might be the right device for you. It's a great slide. Good way to kind of compare everything. It is not uncommon to replace your device every 3 to 5 years. Remember, one of the advantages of a desktop is that you can extend its life by expanding it. If you are thinking of buying a new device, the most important question to ask yourself is, what do I need it for? And I would agree. What are you going to use it for? Are you going to travel with your device? Then maybe a laptop is good. Do you plan on using most of your computer time playing games? Then maybe you need the power of a desktop. Are you going to just read emails or surf the web? Then maybe a tablet is good. Need a cell phone that has the power of a tablet but in a smaller package? A smartphone would probably be what you want. Of course, another consideration is cost. Think about what you can afford and what you are willing to invest in. What features do you absolutely need and what features are nice to have but are willing to sacrifice? All of these considerations mean you must do some research. A quick Google search will often lead you to buying guides for different types of devices. There's some information to guide you to guide your purchase in your handout that you may want to view. Another thing to consider is taking someone you trust to give you reliable information and firsthand experience with a device. So before we move on, does anyone have a question about which device might be best for you?
So if you do have a question, go ahead and let us know in the text chat area. Just pause for a moment and see if we have any questions. Okay, while we're waiting for any questions, let's move on to the next slide.
Okay. Okay, so here's a scenario for you. Dean wants to buy a new device that his whole family can use. From time to time, he needs to work remotely. His kids will need to do their homework on the device and play simple games. When they go away for their summer vacations, they hope to bring the device with them. Which of the devices that we've talked about will suit Dean best? Desktop, laptop, tablet, or smartphone?
So please type your thoughts on which device Dean should choose in the chat box if he could only buy one. Once again, what should Dean
Okay. Yeah, probably laptop would be the best answer. It's powerful enough to do the tasks that Dean's family needs when they're at home, but it's also portable and he can be brought with them when they travel. So, so next thing would be to consider his budget and the cost associated with it, and then how big the monitor, what they want. So before we move on, does anyone have any questions?
So once again, let us know in the text chat area at the bottom right-hand side of the screen if you have any questions.
I always tell folks when it comes to buying laptops or desktops or any mobile device, people always ask, when's the best time to buy it? I say when you have the money for it. You know, there's there's really no big best time to buy. You might wait until, Black Friday or something like that. Yeah, Black Friday's a good one. Beginning of school, there's lots of great sales. But, you know, just if you're not going to be doing gaming or something like that, and, somebody tells you, oh, it's got this high-end video card that you can do this, and this with, and you're like, well, I just want to look at pictures. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, you really don't need that big of a video card. When it comes to, things like how big a hard drive should I buy or how much RAM, I usually tell folks get the most that you can afford because that way you have it for the longest time. So there you go. Yeah, you just need to watch the sales. Absolutely. So there you go. All right. So, so we got that. So a final question, which tip or technique you learned today will feel you help you the most? Go ahead and please type it in the chat panel. And if the
So
answer is I
please
don't know
type the
yet,
tip or
yeah.
technique you choose in the chat box. Restart computer to clear RAM. That's a good one,
Yep.
particularly if it's
Yep.
rebooting is always the first solution.
And that's the same thing for your phones too. If your phones, like we usually don't turn our phones off ever, but if your phone starts acting funky, just turn it off and turn it on again. Just do that. Keep your, you know,
So we
keep your
got
device.
cloud, we got knowing where to
Yeah.
store files, we got what everything means.
Yeah, good.
A lot of people like the restart tip.
Oh, yeah. Knowing where to store files. Yeah. And a lot of times you are going to have to talk to, at the office at least, talk to your coworkers or managers and things like that. They can help guide you as to where the best location to store files is, whether it be a network drive. Once again, as long as a lot of times we would tell our coworkers, don't save anything on your computer because if the computer goes down, then we can't get to it. But if you save it on a network drive or in the cloud, we can all get to the file and don't have to worry about it. So yeah, good. Thanks so much for sharing your information. There are many additional resources available if you want to learn more about today's computers and computing. The partnership offers several classes in both online and in-person classroom formats. Check the partnership website for course descriptions and scheduling for these classes.
And we have quite a few classes and webinars. We have a few webinars left over in the spring, but if you stay tuned to our website, maybe in about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be posting our full webinar schedule for this summer. So check out all our webinars that are coming up in the summertime.